Hi, my name is Tish Long, and I am a proud Hokie alum, class of '82 with a degree in electrical engineering. I started with the Navy at a Navy research lab building acoustic intelligence collection systems for submarines. I always knew that I wanted to enter public service and be a part of something bigger than myself. I continued in the intelligence community throughout my career, with my last position being the director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. That's the agency that works with imagery and maps to make sense of what's going on around the world. We were the agency that found the bin Laden compound and part of the group that helped support the assault team that captured bin Laden. How cool is that? So in December, the government issued a national space policy that called for a whole of government approach that would protect both national security and economic security interests. The policy asserted that space is a priority intelligence domain and directed the intelligence community to enhance its space engagement. The community was directed to increase its support to space defense and enhance its understanding of the adversary's counter space capabilities. Additionally, the Space Force formally joined the intelligence community, which will facilitate collaboration with other intelligence organizations. The Space Force will focus its intelligence activities in a new National Intelligence Space Center, which will be a resource focused on space related threats for the entire intelligence community. The National Space Policy also committed the United States to promote an innovative and globally competitive American space industrial base that could support both national security as well as economic security goals. Additionally, the intelligence community created a commercial space council to facilitate collaboration between government and industry. And more specifically, the council will work to integrate unclassified commercial satellite data with classified data from government systems, as well as speed the delivery of data to intelligence analysts and military users. It's amazing how critical space-based assets are to US national security and to our economic security. Space assets give us access to critical intelligence on our adversaries and on developments of interest around the world, whether it's troop movements or leadership communications. They allow us to track changes on the ground over time. For example, satellite images allowed us to detect construction in North Korean nuclear facilities, even when the government in Pyongyang denied such efforts. They also allow instantaneous and global transmission of critical military, intelligence, and diplomatic communications, which enable the United States to respond rapidly to emerging developments. And space assets are also critical to the functioning of the US economy. GPS satellites don't just enable Google Maps on your iPhone, they enable real time tracking of goods, vehicles, and aircraft. If you're a manufacturer and you want to know whether the ship containing your parts is coming in on time, you can track its progress with sensors that communicate via satellite. Weather satellites, they help predict and track storms that disrupt economic activity and pose grave health and safety dangers. The information these satellites provide literally save lives. Other weather and other weather and scientific satellites collect data that helps us understand the changing climate, another threat the world faces. Space assets have been critical to US intelligence gathering since the first Corona satellite was launched in 1960. That first technology could capture objects 40 feet in size, and it sent the pictures back by ejecting cartridges of film that would be caught in midair by an airplane. Think about that. I mean, just think about how extraordinary that is. And then fast forward to today and compare that with today's commercial satellites, which can capture images of objects as small as 10 inches and send them back to Earth instantaneously. We have clearly made a lot of technological advances in the past 60 years. So it used to be that the most capable space technologies were developed by the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, which meant that the US had a technological advantage over our adversaries. Now, commercially developed space capabilities, which are available to anyone, are incredibly robust. Even free open source geospatial resources, like Google Earth, are amazingly detailed and accurate. These capabilities have democratized space-based intelligence. Everyone from nation states to human rights groups can now access maps, images, and other data derived from space-based assets. Two of the components of the defense space strategy are US military supremacy in space and cooperation with allies and partners. Growing commercial space capabilities directly support these aspects of the strategy. The military and intelligence community can take advantage of commercially developed capabilities at a much lower cost than if they developed, launched, and operated them on their own, operated the satellites on their own. So while the government develops its own systems for certain capabilities, commercial space assets give the military and the intelligence community access to an enormous amount of information at relatively low cost. Furthermore, whereas government developed satellites typically produce sensitive, classified intelligence, commercial satellites generate unclassified data. And so this data, commercially generated, it can be easily used in a wide range of settings. It can inform troop movements in the field. It can support US diplomats engaged in negotiations. It can be shared with allies and partners. And it can even be provided to human rights groups seeking, for example, to identify mass grave sites resulting from war crimes. And we're not able to do that with our classified data from the government satellites. What's particularly critical is that the Innovation Campus will take advantage of the skills and expertise in industry, government, and academia. Its multidisciplinary approach to research groundbreaking technological advances that are focused on solving real-world challenges in national security, business, and society writ large. To me, one of the most amazing contributions of the Innovation Campus is its collaboration with the Alexandria City Public Schools. And that's, they're working to enhance science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities for students. So STEM. This initiative will inspire youth in our community to pursue STEM interests, create potential pathways to higher education in science and technology fields, and create the next generation of innovators who can address challenges in space as well as other domains. As space operations have become more complex, the military needs personnel who can execute specialized mission-critical functions, such as developing military space doctrine, acquiring space systems, monitoring the location of satellites and space debris, and providing space capabilities in support of military operations. So rather than spread these competencies across all the military services, which is what we had been doing, it really made sense to consolidate them in a single service dedicated to space capabilities. And the last of these specialties, it's really critical. As space capabilities have become essential to modern warfare, among other things, satellite operators provide meteorological data needed by the forces in the field. They transmit secure communications and position space-based assets to provide intelligence and ensure that modern precision-guided weapons receive the real-time data needed to ensure their accuracy. So very integral to warfighting. Space really has become the newest warfighting domain, and the Space Force will ensure continuity of operations of US space assets. Space Force personnel will help maintain US space superiority by defending those space-based assets from cyber attack. and from adversaries' anti-satellite weapon systems. Now, as far as how it differs from the Air Force, it is part of the Department of the Air Force. Think of it like the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is part of the Department of the Navy. The Air Force will continue to provide support functions like logistics, base operations, IT support, all to prevent duplication of effort and keep costs down. The annual threat assessment released just this past April, the intelligence community reported publicly that counterspace operations will be a key part of future Chinese military campaigns, and that China already has weapons capabilities to target US and allied satellites. China used a missile to destroy a weather satellite in a test as far back as 2007. And Beijing continues to develop and test counterspace capabilities that include anti-satellite missiles and ground-based lasers. China is not the only nation with counterspace capabilities. India destroyed one of its own satellites in a test in 2019, demonstrating its ability to operate in the space domain. And in 2020 alone, Russia tested 3 anti-satellite weapons, one of which was deployed from another satellite. The creation of the US Space Force will not accelerate this trend. What it will do is ensure that the United States can manage, protect, and expand its own space-based assets effectively and efficiently. Space is a global commons. States with space operations have an obligation to act responsibly. They have an obligation to prevent unnecessary damage to other nations' space-based assets, which include manned space stations, and ensure the safety of people on Earth. The United States cannot maintain its supremacy in space unless we educate future generations of scientists, engineers, intelligence specialists, and others with critical technical skills. Universities should bolster their science and engineering programs to provide the skills that graduates will need in the space field. And opportunities exist beyond the national security domain. Commercial space capabilities, which I talked about previously, are growing rapidly in design, testing, launch, and even the operation of large privately owned satellite constellations. Graduates with the right skills can contribute to both national and economic security through roles in both government and industry. Universities can also work with high schools and even elementary schools to enhance STEM education and expand the pipeline of students who want to study these subjects at the university level, just like Virginia Tech's Innovation Campus is doing. Alumni can contribute to these efforts by working with their local school districts to share their insights and mentor young people with science and technology interests. The power of their example, I believe, will help inspire the next generation of innovators. Of course I do. Go Hokies!